Hey tankers, welcome back to World of Tanks. This is the Science of Success ammo selection. Um, Selecting the right ammunition at the right time can often make the difference between you living or dying. It also makes a difference on whether or not you penetrate and how much damage you do. Even if it doesn't matter, even if it doesn't change whether or not you live or die, it'll still depend. It'll still determine whether or not you do damage to the enemy. World of Tanks has a number of different kinds of ammunition, and we're going to go through them one at a time and what they mean. And I'm going to start with my AMX 5100. The reason I'm going to start with him is because he's a very good example. Okay, the AMX 5100 loads three different kinds of ammunition: AP 100mm armor piercing, APCR, which is 100mm armor piercing composite rigid, hence CR, and HE, which stands for high explosive. You've got, they're obviously all 100mm caliber because they're all fired from a 100mm gun. The difference is in the penetration and damage characteristics. AP and APCR do the same damage, in this case 225 to 375. This gun averages 300 damage with a shell. 225 to 375 is the total range of damage. And APCR does the exact same amount of damage. There's no difference there. Okay? The difference is in penetration. The AP ammo on this gun has an average penetration of 232. So anytime you hit the enemy, the random number generator can produce a number between 174 to 290, compares it to the effective armor of the part of the tank you're hitting, and determines whether or not it goes in. If it goes in, you get full damage. Okay? APCR is no different from AP, except the penetration is higher. Okay, specifically on this tank, it goes from an average of 232 to 263, or a range of 197 to 329. Net effect is the premium ammunition on this tank, which costs a lot of credits or gold, is APCR, and it simply will penetrate more heavily armored targets. With APCR, just like AP, if you get penetration, you get a full damage roll. Okay? HE is a little different. HE stands for high explosive. A high explosive shell explodes upon impact. Okay? And as you can see, the penetration on HE is substantially lower. On this machine, HE has an average penetration, on this gun I should say, an average penetration of 50 millimeters. Now the flip side to HE is it does a whole lot more damage. HE on this gun does an average of 400 damage, okay, with full penetration. I'll explain more about that in a second. Burst radius is 1.76 millimeters. In other words, you don't have to hit the target perfectly. If you shoot any object within 1.76 millimeters of your target, it will splash. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll do damage. Now, the thing you need to know about HE is that you do not have to achieve full penetration to get damage. However, you do have to achieve full penetration to get full damage. Okay? So what that means is if I'm firing HE ammunition at the side of, I don't know, I mean, pick any tier 8 heavy tank, except for an AMX 5100, say a Lurva, with 80 millimeters of side armor. My top penetration roll on HE ammo is 63. It is not going to penetrate. I am not going to do 300 to 500 damage per shell. In fact, my average penetration roll is a little over half of his armor, which means I'm probably going to get half or less penetration. And that's assuming I'm hitting his side flush, not in the tracks, and not in the and not on a sloped surface. Because again, it takes into account the effective armor of the tank, meaning Perfect example. The side of the AMX 5100, this strip right here is almost perfectly vertical, has almost no slope to it, and if you hit this flush right here, it's 35 millimeters of armor. But if you hit it at that angle, well, that's not 35 anymore. Rough math in my head, that's about 90. Okay, that will severely change how much damage your HE shell can do. Okay. Everybody following me so far? As a side note, by the way, this is 90 millimeters on the AMX 5100, but it really isn't. It's sloped heavily, so it's effective about 130. So if you fire an HE shell at this, you need to have 130 millimeters of penetration on average on your HE shell to get full pen. Otherwise, part of the damage will deflect off and get absorbed by the armor, and it won't all go through. That's how HE works. Sloped surfaces help you against HE very well. There's something else that helps you with HE, and that's called spaced armor. Soviet heavy tanks are notorious for spaced armor. Okay, it's armor that essentially doesn't show in the basic armor ratings. It's a soft stat, but all tanks have it. The tracks on every tank in your garage, no matter what it is, act as spaced armor. You can block a shot with your tracks. Everybody's done it at some point. A hit that goes right into the side, does no damage. It blows your track off, but it does no damage because your track absorbed the shot. The track acts as spaced armor. So the armor rating of the track was not enough to prevent the shell from penetrating. However, the armor rating of the track plus the hull was. So it knocks your track off, does no damage to the tank. Why am I telling you all this? Well, because this brings us up to the next type of ammunition, which is often premium. High explosive anti-tank, also known as heat. Heat ammunition, when you have a tank that fires heat, comparing it to the AP of the same machine, it does the same damage. In this case, the 90mm gun on the RU-251, at like all 90mm, it averages 240, has a range of 180 to 300. Heat does the same thing. And you can see the penetration is substantially higher. Okay, it is substantially higher than the regular AP. But see, heat has a little bit of a problem. It's high explosive anti-tank ammo. It explodes when it makes contact. Okay, it's basically, the best way to explain it is, it's basically the way the game handles it. It's a shaped charge, so it gets no splash. You cannot shoot heat near an enemy, okay, and get any splash damage. It doesn't work that way. You have to hit the enemy straight on. But because it explodes on contact in a shaped charge sort of way, spaced armor will suck up a heat round. If you've ever fired a heat round into the side of an IS-3, you know what I'm talking about. Quite often that shot will simply bounce. Well, it's because it explodes and does not penetrate. Now, to show you what heat does against tracks, watch this. Okay guys, so here we've got Nick, and he's in his M44, and I was platooned with him in this battle, by the way, but it was interesting. But neither here nor there. Nick is in the Tier 6 American Artillery, and on the enemy team is a Cromwell and an M44 Tier 6 Artillery. And you can see at the bottom Nick's ammo selection. He's got 27 rounds of HE, high explosive ammo left, and he loads no premium ammo for this tank, which is heat. Now, what you're going to see happen is they're chasing down the Cromwell. Okay, there he is. Now he's got 111 hit points left. And the gun on this machine does an average damage of 750 with its HE, so even if most of it gets absorbed, one shot kills this Cromwell. No problem. Cromwell hits him once, he comes around, and shotguns him. Easy kill. Okay? No matter what, the Cromwell's dead there unless he kills Nick with the second shot. Now, what you're about to see happen is you're about to see an enemy M44 fire a heat round. Look what happens when you fire a heat round. And remember, that's the premium ammo for this machine. I'm running it slow so you can see the shot. There it is, right there. If you saw it coming in right as the M44 was spotted, blocked. M44 heat round, premium ammo, blocked. It hit the track, exploded upon impact, knocking out Nick's track. That M44 now has 18 seconds before it has to reload. Had he been firing HE ammunition, Nick would be dead. Plain and simple. That shot would have hit flush, gotten, even with the spaced armor of the tracks, it still would have hit flush and done at least 400 damage. 280 kills Nick. Instead, the heat round gets eaten by the track. Okay, I couldn't come up with a better example of that. So, can't put it any more clearly than that. Now, there's a few other forms of ammunition in the game, and to look at that, we will go to the tech tree and say look at the UK, and we'll look at the ever popular Death Star. The Death Star has that ridiculous tier 10 183mm gun, and it fires 3 different types of ammunition. It fires armor piercing, premium high explosive known as HESH, and then high explosive. Okay? HESH rounds work like normal high explosive, not heat. If you look up here, you see the average penetration and damage statistics for the ammunition on this tank. Armor piercing is 310 millimeters of penetration with an 1150 average damage. That's pretty brutal. Though it's not the highest penetration I've seen on tier 10 tanks by any means. T110E4 does better than that. But its HE has 92 millimeters of pen and does 1,750 average damage on a full penetration. Again, most of the time you're not going to get that. You're firing at tier 9, 10, sometimes 8 tier targets that have a lot more than 92 millimeters of pen, so you often will not get that. However, for the discerning player, you fire the HESH rounds, which has 230 pen, works just like high explosive in that when it hits, it explodes and does damage, has 1,750 average damage. So what this means is this round gets 2.5 times the penetration with the same damage as high explosive. You hit the front of an IS-4 with HE from the Death Star's gun, the FV215B183. You hit the front of an IS-4 completely unangled, right on the point, you'll probably do 400 or 500 damage. You hit him with a HESH round, you're going to do 1,000 to 1,200 because of the higher penetration on the explosive. Alright, if that makes sense. Now, many games are won and lost with ammo selection. Okay, almost all my tanks carry the standard AP rounds, a few premium rounds, as well as HE. How much premium? Well, it depends on the gun. Alright, looking at this guy, the Jagdpanzer IV Tier 6 tank destroyer. It's got the short 88 gun, which has 132 millimeters of average pen on regular ammunition. For a Tier 6 tank destroyer, this is okay. It's a little on the light side compared to the 90 millimeters you get on, say, a Hellcat or Jackson. But it's okay, especially if you're a top tier, you'll be pretty much alright. When you have to shoot an OI or a Tier 7 heavy tank, you've got the APCR, which has an average pen of 171. So you need to bring a few rounds of APCR. You also need to bring some HE. So what do you fire at what? Well, number one, I'm not a big fan of spamming premium ammo, so I'm firing AP most of the time. APCR, or heaven forbid if you have to fire heat, that is for your heavily armored targets. Again, heat rounds, don't shoot at the tracks. You need to try and plant it right into the hull if you can. HE is for your softer targets. For example, let me switch to, what am I doing here? There we go. T110E4. I've got a lot of APCR on this tank, I'm not sure why, but I have 9 HE rounds. Why do I have 9 HE rounds? Well, because with an average penetration of 90, you shoot at the gun shield of a Waffenträger, Alpha E100, or any of those Waffenträgers, you will achieve full penetration and you will do 1100 damage. Period. Most artilleries have no armor, or little to no armor, and if you are a comparable tier tank, you will achieve full penetration with HE if you shoot it in the superstructure. There's a lot of other tanks in the trees that are like that, looking at the US. Say M8A1, T67, Hellcat. Those guys have little to no armor, and you will achieve full penetration with HE. Most light tanks, most artilleries, I did say most, I said it twice in fact. Looking at, say, the German line has those glass cannon tank destroyers, the Dicker Max, and the Nashorn, and the Toaster, the Sturrer Meal. All those tanks have little to no armor, and HE round will do full penetration, typically. When not to carry HE, well, you gotta look at your tank. Okay? Gotta look at your tank. Let's look at the EZ8, for example. Tier 6 76mm M1A2 gun. Very good gun, high rate of fire, 128 pen, except look on the HE ammunition. HE ammunition does 38 millimeters of penetration. How many tier 6 tanks only have 38 millimeters of armor? I mean, Sturrer Meal, Dicker Max, some artilleries, not even all. You're going to have so few targets that can actually be you can actually achieve damage. And look, the damage goes up to 185. I'd much rather just fire AP, guarantee full penetration, because if you're shooting at a tier 6 arty, you're going to kill him in 3 hits anyway. Okay. But you have to know when to use what round. And that's the most important thing, and that's something that you'll see a lot of in my videos. You'll see me switch ammunitions at certain times, and that's really the key, knowing when you need to switch to that premium round, when you're coming up on targets that you can really achieve damage with HE. And you know, for your tanks with ultra long reload times like a T30 or T110E4 or any of those tanks with the big high caliber weapons that take up to 20 seconds to reload, perks like Intuition are very helpful, because Intuition, when it works, it does not always, but if you're 8 seconds into an 18-second reload and you suddenly realize you need HE and not AP, you can sometimes you can just double tap your HE and it will switch over for free when it works. And when it does, it's a wonderful thing, let me tell you. Well, that's all the theory I want to bore you guys with right now, but I hope this information helps. I hope it kind of clears up a little bit. Just to sum up, AP is your standard armor-piercing ammo. Your penetration has to exceed the armor of what you're hitting, and you get full damage. APCR does the same thing. Heat does the same thing, but not against spaced armor, such as gun mantlets or tracks, or other spaced armor that you find on, say, the side of Soviet heavies, which they're very common. HESH is basically high explosive on steroids. If you've got a tank that can fire HESH, you may as well fire nothing but HESH. And then HE, your high damage round for your lightly armored targets. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope you liked the video. Please comment, subscribe for more. See you next time.